Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. If you'd please take your seats, that would be great. The staff here at the Marriott Hotel are doing a great job. They're going to stop clearing the tables for a few minutes, but needless to say, after Mary Gwen Wheeler's presentation, we'll still have about a 10-minute, 15-minute break, so they'll be able to clear. You'll be able to get up and walk around and be back ready for the 12:45 presentation. Again, good afternoon. My name's Kathy Zandona. I'm the Senior Vice President for Network Engagement at the Graduate Network. As Adas mentioned in her earlier presentation, we're in 41 communities across the country, and I double-checked with a couple people here that this is the first time that we believe in a state over 200 individuals from higher education institutions have gathered together for the common cause of helping adults attain their degrees and credentials and have a better livelihood. So congratulations to you all. And we'll make sure that that message about being the first in the country gets spread around everywhere. So now it's my pleasure to introduce a figure very notable in the state of Kentucky, Mary Gwen Wheeler. Mary Gwen is the Executive Director of 55,000 Degrees in Louisville, Kentucky. Previously, she served as the Mayor's Senior Advisor for Education and Youth for Louisville Metro Government, leading policy development and the implementation of education and youth initiatives. She has experience in family literacy. In fact, Mary Gwen and I worked together at the National Center for Family Literacy just a few years ago. She also has worked in workforce development, nonprofit management, strategic planning, and international development. And literally, the list can go on and on. She is has done great things for our community and for the state. And today, she's going to share with us the journey of how Louisville mobilized the community, business leaders, education leaders around the common goal. And I bet you all can guess what that common goal is. Mary Gwen, my dear friend.
Thank you, Kathy. And it is such an honor to be here, and I'm so pleased to see this gathering. And my remarks are going to just reiterate a lot of what's already been said. It's been a privilege for me to be part of a community-wide effort to increase post-secondary attainment, and in turn, the impact that we know that has on our economic prosperity and quality of life. When 55,000 Degrees launched in 2010, actually it was when we had a website and a telephone number, the first calls that started coming in were from adult learners. They were wanting to finish their degree, and I followed closely behind that were students and parents looking for scholarships. Their aspirations were inspiring, and also the barriers they faced were motivating to us because we knew we had focused on a real need in the community, the kinds of things that you've already been hearing about today. The need was recognized by Louisville's leadership just by looking at the data, that our education pipeline and ecosystem were only working for some people. We had a group called the Greater Louisville Project that had been looking at data of Louisville in comparison to 15 peer cities. And research that they did showed that typically a birth cohort in Louisville, of that birth cohort of about 10,000 people, only 25%, 2,500, were going to get an associate degree or higher. And this is at a time when our workforce development boards were telling us that jobs of the future were going to require post-secondary education. Mayor Abramson, he was mayor at the time, who I was working for, organized a cross-sector roundtable, the leadership that Kathy mentioned, from education, community, government, and it was both higher ed and K-12. And the earliest conversations that we had to examine the root causes looked something like this. Higher ed would say, oh yes, many of our students don't graduate, but it's hard when they don't arrive college ready. We've had that college ready discussion already. High schools would say, oh yes, we should increase our graduation rate, But you know what? They enter without the basic skills they need, and in ninth grade they start failing classes, and they realize pretty quickly they're not going to graduate in 4 years. So they drop out, and so on and so on. Does that sound familiar? So our roundtable, I think the biggest thing we did was have people at the same table to stop the finger pointing and to say that if we're going to move out of the bottom tier of our peer cities in education, we have to work together. This means sharing data. It means having honest conversations about that data. It means collaborating, and it means that we have shared accountability. So our goal, rallying around that, was to get to 50% of our population by 2020, by this year, with a college degree. Well, we're at 45%. We had started around 38%. So we've made progress, but we are not there. So let me tell you a little bit about the strategy that you guys are most interested in that we pursued. One of the strategies we identified responded to the data that about 100,000 people in our community of working age population had some college and no degree. So how could we collaborate to reach this population? How could we create and clear pathways for them? Could we use this cross-sector table and common goal to connect businesses and higher ed and reach their employees? We thought that working with business would be a nice complement. At the time, CPE had done Project Graduate and was rolling that out, which was help institutions finding their own stop-outs. Could we also find people by going through employers? So I want to talk a little bit about the successes and failures of our various iterations of trying to work with employers and reach out to adults directly that really tried to connect them to our institutional partners. And just overall, I'll say that we did see some progress. That 100,000, which at the time was about a quarter of our working age population, has gone down to about 89,000, which is about a fifth of our population. So more people are getting degrees. There are fewer people who have some college and no degree. But building a lasting adult attainment initiative has been elusive. So what did we do and what did we learn? We started by trying to sell employers on the value of helping their employees return to college. We had a major grant from Lumina, and our chamber, Greater Louisville Inc., who Kathy worked for at the time, partnered with 55K to develop a set of research-based products that we thought would help working adults earn a college degree. We called it the Employee Education Delivery System, EADS. The toolkits organized basic types of supports, information, and motivation around these categories: college knowledge, logistics, affordability, and ongoing support. And in the employer toolkit, recognition. That was a first step, but we recognized we needed to do more, and we capitalized on Mayor Fisher. Then at that point, Greg Fisher had taken on the mayoral challenge to the community. He said, it's great to have this common goal, but we need every community member to make a pledge of how they're going to support our goal, and that became 55,000 Degrees Count Me In campaign. We took the opportunity to rebrand as Degrees at Work, and the initiative challenged employers to actually name the number of people they were going to support them in continuous learning, and pledge a number of degrees. And Degrees at Work launched a website that would help. Toolkits, video testimonies so that adults could hear from others, a link to sign up as an adult learner, and an employer registration to get started. Well, Degrees at Work eventually did sign on about 67 participating employers who agreed to do such things as identify a college advocate, that one person inside who knows something. They surveyed their employee base to determine the interest in college and to provide supports like tuition reimbursement, flexible hours, and career steps. The data that we gathered did guide some program interventions and linked employee students with post-secondary liaisons, because that was the other side. We wanted to make sure there was somebody on the campus. Let me tell you about one small manufacturer of about 200 employees, Universal Woods, who was a true success story for us. President Paul Newman, his attention was caught by this percentage of, a quarter of people have some college, no degree, and he thought, that can't be right. That's like, people that aren't starting from zero. So he surveyed his own workforce and found it to be almost the same. He had no idea how large this pool was. So he revamped their college support program. They offered tuition up front rather than as reimbursement. They made it easier for their employees to take classes. They accessed the Degrees at Work services and later on Degrees Work, which I'll whole nother thing, to advise and navigate those pathways. And they celebrated successes. They had an honor wall. About 10% of their employees have since earned 2 to 4 year degrees, and 12% are currently enrolled. For many of the employers, however, that kind of investment was just not in the cards. And they found that helping employees make that final step to actual enrollment proved to be one of the biggest challenges and a reason that led us to pivot in our approach. So, learning number one, adult comebackers are not the low-hanging fruit we thought. That if we could just find them, it would be easy to re-enroll them. First of all, finding them is hard. But secondly, and as you in this room know and we've already talked about, the same reasons that led to them stopping out, jobs, family, money, are the same barriers to coming back. And employers saw their role as offering tuition reimbursement, not necessarily all these college access supports. So our next iteration was to organize a more comprehensive one-stop shop for adult learners based on a formal post-secondary partnership. And this adult attainment network that we put together joined and learned from the Graduate Network, which provided us training, coaching, a Salesforce frameworks for tracking the adults served. We had everybody sign a memorandum of agreement. 7 local colleges and universities established a new network that we now called Degrees Matter to provide neutral, best fit college coaching services for those adult comebackers modeled after Graduate Philadelphia. This network had committed to looking at their own campuses. They did the ALFI, this Adult Learning Friendly Index study, inventory, and they committed to looking at things like prior learning assessments, online programs, and that designated admissions officer for adult learners. However, we were still supported by grant funding. And so we conducted a feasibility study for what we thought might work, a 2-payer model where employers would pay for services and our post-secondary members would pay fees to be part of this network. Our final iteration, which we called Degrees Work, was born, and Kentuckiana Works, our workforce investment board, stepped up to host it. We staffed it with an executive director and college coaches, and Degrees Work survived for several years and helped more than a couple hundred students at places like Humana, Louisville Metro Government, and Trilogy Healthcare. For a whole host of reasons, but the biggest one, Degrees Work did ultimately close its doors, but it was primarily because we could not make that funding model work. So a second lesson, then, I would say, is that at a time when there is a lot of private sector innovation between online providers and large employers, the kinds of things that Mike Krause was talking about earlier, we did not find the right mix of services that were valued enough to support a neutral, community-based intermediary. I'm not saying this can't be done. We just didn't figure it out to do it. So I've detailed sort of some of our experiences and the challenges. What I would say is a failure to establish a comebacker center. But I can also stand here and count lots of successes in making our campuses more adult-friendly that came from our efforts to collaborate and learn from each other. And you'll be hearing about some of them in some of the other later sessions with Matt Bergman, with Ivy Tech, with JCTC. There's a number of things that are going on. I would like to point out the shining example at U of L of the Bachelor of Science Organizational Learning and Leadership program. This degree program, which is housed in the College of Education and Human Development, is tailor-made for busy schedules of working adults. 8 to 10-week courses that meet online or in the evening. And it allows students to earn up to 48 credit hours through portfolio assessment for prior learning and the relevant experience they've had in their careers. In fact, U of L's OLL program, which has grown from 130 students in 2007 to more than 500 who are currently enrolled is widely regarded in the community as a best in class. And I'm proud that we were early on to recognize that when we awarded them 55,000 Degrees Innovation Award in 2013. Matt Bergman, right over there. In this last year of 55K's 10-year initiative, and yes, we started in 2010, it's 2020, it was a 2020 goal. So we have, just as an aside, we have stood up a successor, or a sustainable successor organization and cradle to career effort called Evolve 502, which is a whole other session at some point, which will include a promised scholarship for our public school grads and a deep focus on those wraparound support services so that we improve equity and student outcomes. But on the adult learner front, in this last year, we've been working with the Graduate Network to reconvene our higher ed partners. And the learning and collaboration and exchange continues. We're asking, can others replicate Ivy Tech's debt relief program called Fresh Start? Or U of L's Fresh Start program, which is an academic forgiveness program? Can we reach some kind of collaboration to release transcripts, at least between each other, even when there is debt owed? How are colleges and universities making direct partnerships with employers, such as our Spalding University's online RN to BN program, now being offered to Humana employees across the nation? So let me wrap up. I want to leave you with a few conclusions and a few recommendations. First, don't rebrand your program 4 times in 6 years. It's really hard to get the word out about that. Actually, though, having the banner of 55,000 Degrees helped with that continuity. As one partner said, our community goal helps spread the word about the value of college and the direct impact on workforce and the quality of life. 55K legitimized focus on post-secondary attainment, both within institutions, how to increase their graduation rate and have it be more people graduating, with employers and with the broader community as well. Secondly, identifying and reaching those prospective comebackers is hard, but after that first contact, the real work begins. As others have said, it takes lots of encouragement and touches to convert them to enrollment. And it requires people who are sensitive to the needs of adult learners, knowledgeable about tuition reimbursement at employers, knowledgeable about loan default, and knowledgeable about prior learning and transcript review. You need to invest in a person to be that navigator and coach. Number 3, the best way to make connection with employers, institutions, is to do it yourself. Direct outreach pays dividends when you can not only meet that employer's need, but also help them increase their employee satisfaction by smoothing that path to a degree. That pays dividends to the employer, and they'll know it quickly. And fourth and last, create opportunities to learn from each other, as you are doing here today, and help that adult find the best fit. I'm going to call on Matt Bergman again. He quoted when being interviewed about the value of 55K. You know, everyone is trying to grow enrollment, but we're not all necessarily competing for the same population. So when we get together, as we are here, see what each other's doing, figure out if you can replicate it or modify it, or even collaborate to leverage that impact. So I hope that this story helps a little bit in seeing what you in your communities can do and also what you and your institutions can do. Enjoy the rest of the conference. Think about partnerships, about community goal setting, about mainly about looking at your own practices and policies from the perspective of the adult learner as a worker, a family member, and a student. And luckily, the next panel is you're going to hear directly from those students. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mary Gwen. How about another round of applause for her? That was a great story. Yay!